All of this raising questions about whether the GOP is actually interested in governing and how Democrats plan to respond. I am the perfect person to have these questions addressed. California Congresswoman Sara Jacobs joins us. She's the youngest member of Democratic House leadership, representing members who have served 5 terms or less. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. First off, congratulations on actually getting sworn in. I know that was a little bit of a feat last week, and that's why I have to ask. Tomorrow, we have a vote on that rules package. What are your thoughts about what's in there, and what are you expecting to take place tomorrow?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's my second term, and my parents have still never seen me sworn in person. So maybe next term we'll have a more normal swearing-in day. But look, we know that Kevin McCarthy mortgaged the speakership and the governing of the House to the far right to be able to get the votes to become speaker. We know of some of the deals that he made, and there are many more that we still don't know about. So I know House Democrats are going to be united in opposing the rules package that will, frankly, make the House ungovernable. And Kevin McCarthy can only lose 4 votes to be able to get it passed. And we already know that there are some moderate Republicans who are saying they're not going to vote for it. So I think it's going to be another very interesting day on the floor tomorrow. But, at the end of the day, this is not just about this sort of political game. There are very real consequences to us not being able to get anything done in the House. And I'm really concerned about what this means for the next 2 years.
And I'm glad that you brought up looking forward, right? Because we do have 2 years under House GOP majority leadership in the House. How much optimism do you keep that the House, led by this particular Republican Party, because let's be clear, it's this particular group of folks. Do you have any optimism that you're going to be able to get actual governing done? Because, of course, there's some satisfaction that they're so disorganized and they're totally chaotic. But to your point, Americans need work to be done. They need to make sure that there's food on the table, things are done. So what's your optimism going into the next 2 years?
I'm not counting on the Republicans to be able to get anything done. I think the one potential positive is that some of the rules that they have put in place or said they're going to put in place actually will make it easier for Democrats to be able to get some things done. For instance, they're changing the rules on what's called a discharge petition, which means anyone who can get enough signatures can make a bill actually come to the floor. And then we only need 4 Republicans to vote with us. So I think they've also talked about having open amendments on the floor so that we're going to have to vote on things and be able to change bills in real time. So I think there will be opportunities for Democrats to make sure that the basic functions of government, like the debt limit, like the government spending, are going to get done working with our partners in the Senate. But it's going to be a hard road, and we certainly can't count on this Republican majority to do it.
Let me ask you a question, though, to follow up. Do you have some optimism, though, that I'll use moderate in quotes, the more moderate Republicans that are not part of that far right caucus, do you think that they'll actually be willing to break rank and to come over and vote with Democrats?
I think there are enough. Again, remember, we only need 4 that understand that some of these stakes are really, really high, that we're talking about the default of the United States government on our debt, right? These are very real consequences. I think there'll be enough who will be willing to make sure that these things get done.
Politico is reporting, Congresswoman, that there is a proposed subcommittee to look into the, quote, weaponization of the federal government that would be empowered to review ongoing criminal investigations. This is actually going to be a subcommittee that's going to be operating under Jim Jordan's kind of control and the auspices of Jim Jordan. Obviously, this is going to happen while Donald Trump is the subject of multiple criminal probes being overseen by special counsel Jack Smith. What's the Democratic strategy to combat this?
Yeah, look, elections have consequences, and at the end of the day, they do have the majority, and there won't be that much that we can do to stop the actual investigations from taking place. We will try and stand up at every place that we can, and frankly, I never thought I'd say this, but thank goodness for the United States Senate and the fact that they never let anything from the House actually get done. But I think the most important thing we can do is continue focusing on what the American people elected us to do. Continue focusing on the cost of living. Like for my constituents in San Diego, the cost of childcare, the cost of housing, the cost of healthcare. We saw the candidates in the election who were talking about Hunter Biden's laptop and all these things. They were not the most successful. And I think that there'll be a real price to pay for Republicans for focusing on these silly investigations that are frankly bogus instead of what the American people need.
But those election deniers, the ones that focus on the Hunter Biden laptop absurdity, they're the ones that held Kevin McCarthy hostage, right? And then they're the ones that had to gain these concessions from McCarthy. So in some weird way, even though a lot of them were unsuccessful in their runs for office, the more prominent ones that we see, MTG and the Lauren Boeberts, the Matt Gaetzes, they're still controlling some of those power levers. And so, again, do you think that small faction of, frankly, I think insurrectionist, seditious, conspirators, do you think that they are going to be able to still have that influence and that power kind of seeping out to the rest of that party?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think it should be ignored that on the anniversary of January 6th, it was the very same people who helped foment the big lie and encourage the violence who were the ones who got the concessions from Kevin McCarthy to make sure that he could become speaker. And so he has mortgaged this Republican majority and his speakership to the far right. They're going to have extreme power, especially based on the concessions that we already know of, let alone the ones we don't know of. And I think we should all be very concerned about what this means. On the other hand, again, the Democrats still control the Senate. Democrats control the White House. The worst of what they're going to try and do is going to be able to be stopped. And frankly, if they want to make all of their members take votes on the extreme policies that they're pushing, frankly, we would welcome the American people actually seeing just how extreme this Republican majority is.
Because it ends up being on the congressional record. Congresswoman Sara Jacobs, congratulations again on actually getting sworn in after last week's debacle. But we're looking forward to your leadership, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.